wanted to share something in hopes that it will help someone in these times when it seems that a lot of the things that have been in our unconscious minds are now being forced to the surface because we're in a day of revelations when all things shall be revealed, not only about ourselves, but about the world that we live in. There was a time several years ago that I guess I would say I would try to run from my thoughts and use different things as a distraction just to avoid um, hearing the thoughts that was in my mind. Um, at that time, I would have the TV running all day in my room, even if I wasn't watching it. And when it was time for me to go to sleep, that television would stay on as well. When I would get in my car, I would always have the radio playing or something. It always had to be some noise in the background just so I could get away from my thoughts. But over time, as I started getting more comfortable with facing myself and listening to my thoughts, it has gotten to the point where I've made a lot of progress in that area. Whereas now, I don't even have a television in my house. So it's usually always quiet in here unless myself and or my daughters we're all talking to each other. Outside of that, it's quiet. And so I guess we've all gotten comfortable with I guess I would say facing the thoughts that come up in our mind and assess them. So I said all of that to say that I'm glad that I was, kind of getting myself used to that, because this time that we're in right now, a lot of things is coming up from out of the unconscious mind, because what appears to be happening to me is that I had read in this psychology book that one of the purposes of the ego is to serve as a gatekeeper to the conscious mind. And what I understood that to mean was that the ego got to determine what would be allowed from the unconscious mind to reach the conscious mind. So if there was something in the unconscious mind that would maybe speak to the individual individual's insecurities, the ego wouldn't allow it into the conscious mind. Um, Anything that would undermine the ego, it wouldn't allow into the conscious mind. So now that we're in a time where it seems like there's an energy that's hitting the planet that is dismantling the ego, and it's like we can't stop it. And one of my friends, her and I was having a discussion one day, and she said that the veil is the ego. And so that made a lot of sense, because I guess if the ego is being dismantled and moved out of the way, it's almost like the veil is being removed. And so now the gate is unattended. So all these things, our fears, our traumas, our insecurities, our complexes, all of these things that the ego would, how could I put it, spare us from, I'll say, is now coming to the surface. So what I would recommend, and I just want to make it clear that I'm just, well, let me scratch that. I'm not going to say recommend, because I'm not telling anyone to do anything. Everyone can do as they choose according to their own free will. I'm just going to state what I've done. Um, when I started kind of scratching the surface of kind of delving into my unconscious mind by reducing the noise and the chatter in the background. So I would get in my car at some point, and I would turn the radio off and just let it be silence, and just paid attention to the thoughts that was coming to my mind. And I would analyze them, and I would kind of analyze them from a place of kind of detaching myself from the thoughts, so that it was easier for me to face the thoughts and deal with them, instead of having like an emotional connection to them. I found that to be easier, almost like from a position of an observer. And I found that that helped me a lot. And some of the things that I discovered when I would, reduce the noise in the background, whether it's from the TV or the radio, I found that I made a lot of discoveries that was very helpful to me. But I had to be willing to face them. And I found that it helped me a lot. And so I'm saying that I feel it's something that perhaps people should consider, especially at this time, because it seems that there's going to be no way to avoid this. Because to keep or to continue to try to suppress the natural order of things, I'm thinking the results will be disastrous because what we resist persists. And it seems we should be going along with the flow of the energy that's on the planet. That's if you're even aware of the energy that's on the planet. Some people are not even aware. But just because they're not aware, it doesn't mean that they're excluded from this process. It's just that their results will be different from someone else who is aware because they know what time it is and they know what they need to be doing. It's time to clean up our acts and clean up our internal beings of all the trauma and the baggage and all the things that makes our hearts heavy. It seems to be this seems to be the time I feel that they talk about the weighing of the heart. It's like we're given the impression that that's something that takes place after you expire, but I'm starting to feel that it's taking place now. Even like the day of judgment that they speak of, I think it's now. I don't think it's a one specific date thing. You know, when someone transitions, I just don't think that because I feel like I'm going through it now, but that's my personal experience and feeling that I get. But I do want to add something on that note. Um, I'm going back a little more than 20 years ago. I I will call it dabbling. I dabbled in Islam for a quick minute. I mean, it was very short lived. Um, I might have attended a mosque 2, 3 times at best, but I mostly stayed home and did, whatever spiritual things I needed to do. I wasn't one to necessarily go to buildings or temples to do that. I felt I could do it home. But at that time, I did purchase a Quran, which I didn't even read much of that. I might have skimmed it through it here or there. And but what I mostly was doing was listening to at that time Minister Louis Farrakhan. I purchased a lot of tapes and stuff. Um, at that time they had VCRs, so watching a lot of videos and stuff. But I remember him saying in one of the videos that his teacher, Elijah Muhammad, had said that I forgot what he was quoting, but he said something to the effect of the day of judgment is the time in which we now live. I'm kind of paraphrasing. And that always kind of stuck with me, even though I wasn't really feeling it back then. Because, like I said, I'm talking about at least 20 years ago. And at that time, I read what I think was the preface of the Quran. It was the beginning part, like before you get into the like the surahs or whatever. And I remember reading in there that heaven and hell weren't places, that they were states of mind. And that was something like I never heard before. And I kind of tucked that under my belt and kept that with me. And so now, fast forwarding back to the present, I said all of that to say that the things I used to buy into, like, the day of judgment and all these things that they say is supposed to take place after death, I'm wondering if these are things that take place while we're living. And I'm also wondering, are these things that take place over a period of time, like a cycle, and not necessarily a specific date? Because everything else seemed to work in cycles, so why wouldn't that? You know what I'm saying? Like, which brings to mind when the Bible talks about how the Christ is supposed to come like a thief in the night. I had always gotten the impression that that meant that it would be a specific date, that suddenly Christ would descend from the clouds on a specific date that none of us is aware of, like a thief in the night. And we'll all still be partying and dancing and eating and marrying and giving into marriage, all of that, what the Bible says. But now I'm starting to think that that is a period of time, something that happens over a period of time, like a cycle or a certain era, which I believe is now. I believe it's a Christ energy that is hitting the planet. Because when it says it'll come like a thief in the night, that sounds like a thief in the night sounds like something that will come unnoticed when everyone's sleeping and not watching for it. Something that'll kind of like come in through the back door, take something and leave, and you never even know what happens until you discovered what was taken. Why would it describe it as a thief in the night? Almost like it will come and be under the radar, so to speak. But why describe it as a thief? As if something is being taken. What would be taken? I'm starting to wonder. Remember in the Bible where it says that two will be grinding at the mill and one will be taken and the other left? I'm wondering if that's what's being taken. Like people are being taken spiritually, though. When I say spiritually, I mean those who are able to tap into that Christ frequency. Maybe you don't see them anymore, let's just say. Because maybe they're on a different vibration and you can't see them. I know it sounds crazy, but the higher you vibrate, the less dense you become. So I'm thinking the less visible you'll be. Another thing I want to add, going back to what I was saying, about those years ago when I was listening to Minister Farrakhan. Well, they said that his teacher, Elijah Muhammad, was taught by what do they call him? Master Fuad Muhammad. I'm not going to get into all of that, but that's who they said taught Elijah Muhammad. He came, and some of them interpreted that scripture that I was just saying about Jesus coming like a thief in the night, or Christ rather. I think there's a difference between Jesus and Christ. Let me just add that. But this Master Fard Muhammad, he came in, started the Nation of Islam, did everything he had to do, and they said he disappeared without a trace. Like, they literally don't know where he went. You can look this up. It's going to say, after it tells you whatever little brief biography about him and whatever his mission was and what he did, most articles, if it goes that much in depth, will say he vanished without a trace. So where did he go? That always baffled me. But now, understanding how energy works, I think I get it. So, let me get back on track. Remember in the Bible where it says the Christ was saying, many things I could tell you, but you can't bear it now. But when he is come, the Spirit of truth, he will guide you into all truth. That's the time I think we're in now. So to guide you into all truth is not, I don't feel, is I feel that covers a lot of things, including ourselves, the truth about ourselves. This is where I think the main focus should be, to know thyself. This is, in fact, the great work, to know thyself. And there's so many aspects about ourselves that we're not in touch with or even aware of, because they're in the unconscious mind. But it's all now coming to the surface, so why not help it along? Don't keep running from it, because you can't. You're just going to be a ticking time bomb waiting to explode, thinking you could suppress something that can no longer be suppressed. We got to face that. We can't run anymore. You can attempt to no avail, though. To continue to try to run from yourself is almost like synonymous with like you being a boiler system with no pressure relief valve. You're gonna blow any moment. I don't mean to laugh at that. It just sounded funny, but um, I just wanted to put this out there to make people aware of what I think is happening right now. And, I know it could be scary, especially for those who's not used to doing that, who still got the distractions and all the noise, the background noise and chatter going on, whether you on social media on your phone or always watching television or always listening to music or always listening to videos or always on the phone with somebody, whatever the distraction may be. Just start off easy, even if it's like maybe 15 minutes a day. Go somewhere where it's quiet. Somewhere in nature would probably be helpful, you know? And I'm not gonna lie, some things might be painful. You might have to shed some tears. Um, but it's all about facing oneself. And the more you do this, the easier it gets and the better you will feel. Some of you may have been through so much, you may need some help with that. Some people might need to go see a therapist to help them with this. Um, but anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope that helps somebody.